Hey everyone. Thanks so much, Skylar. As Skylar mentioned, for some of you guys who haven't seen me yet, I am Candace Newman. I am the CEO and founder of Live Out Live, as he mentioned. And what Live Out Live does is create opportunity, access, and resources for young people to gain pipeline access into the live music industry or the music industry overall. And as Skylar mentioned, we've had the pleasure to collaborate and help elevate some of these programs. So today I am honored to connect with Miss Dope Candi and talk a little bit more about her background. So to briefly introduce her before she goes into her story, Dope Candi is a producer, DJ, Dolby Atmos certified engineer, and so much more in the music industry. So welcome so much. Welcome, Dope Candi. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for
Guys, show
having
some love. Welcome her. Awesome. Thank you.
me.
Awesome. So before we dive in, I just want to just invite you guys to drop any questions into the chat. I will kick the conversation off by asking her a couple of general questions and we can dive deeper in, but would welcome you guys to ask her questions directly. This is your mentorship session. This is just 1 hour to learn from a dope producer who's actually doing the work in the music industry. So feel free to drop those questions into the chat. So I want to just kick things off with you and say welcome and invite you to share a little bit more about yourself. How would you describe who Dope Candi is and what different lanes you work in across DJ and production, engineering, and immersive audio?
Awesome. Yeah, I would say who I am. I'm a Detroit girl, a kid that grew up in the music because of my family. So, my family are musicians, and that's how I really got my start. My mom was a singer songwriter, and that's really like it was like her life's purpose. So, she toured with Bob Seger, started in rock and roll at 16, and then worked in Motown. So I literally grew up in the studio after school. I was that kid that was trying to leave. Like, why do I have, can I go over to my friend's house? And it's like, no, we gotta go to the studio. So just eating McDonald's, falling asleep on the couch. And that really like shaped, I guess, the curiosity for me to go into music. In the business, well, before I would say, got my career really started, even though I was like doing things at a super young age in high school, middle school. It wasn't until after college because I went in a totally different direction. I was kind of like rebellious and fighting it. So I went in a totally different direction and I gained a lot of knowledge in business, like working in banking, working in all these other things that definitely contributed to like my point of view on the business side of things, and then jumped into education. So I also teach this stuff, which is super dope that things kind of carved out the way they were because we always talk about how do we go from, trying to make it in the music industry and working a full-time job and all that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty sure we'll talk more about that. But my whole life experience kind of just shaped me into the direction. It was just like, here's a path, walk this way. When it's time to pivot, then pivot the next way. And so that's really what has been happening. And I'm in LA now. I've been doing a lot of things working with brands, been in writing camps, been DJing everywhere. And so along the path, it's just been adding more skills. And that's been like the overall, I guess, shaping of like who I am.
That's amazing. I was going to ask you like what pulled you into the music industry, but you come from music industry background, so it was organic, obviously. It was destined for you to work in this industry. But I wanted to ask, looking back at your start, like what was there a pivotal moment where you stopped and you were like, I need to be in the music industry. I need to have a seat at the table and decided to kind of build your own pathway?
Yeah, I would say a lot of things happen organic, but when I was about, I think 11th grade, like I was really like pounding the pavement on being an artist. I was in the studio producing my own stuff. I had girl groups, did the whole thing. And then it was at one point where I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I was like at that brink of that fork in the road. Are you going to go to college? Or are you going to, just focus on your music? And I watched my mom go through a lot of bad experiences when it came to the business side. And so I was just like, I want to do it, but not like this. Like, it's got to be another way. I need to be in somebody's office. We need to be signing checks. Like, I just, like the bouncing around from studio to studio and trying to figure it out, the highs and then the lows, it just wasn't for me because it wasn't consistent. And so I went to school, started off in marketing, and I was working with a marketing company that worked with Interscope, and I had to pass out all the posters and the flyers. Now I'm from Detroit, so I went to Michigan State first. And it was freezing cold, and I'm out there trying to post up flyers on somebody's business. And I said, this ain't it either. So, like throwing the CDs was, I'm aging myself. CDs, were the thing, and we would slide them up under the campus doors and things. And so I did that for a hot second and was like, no, maybe marketing isn't my thing. And I had some friends that were all in finance and accounting, so I pivoted to accounting and I transferred. I did study abroad everywhere, like China and all types of things. So those things brought me a lot of experience and kind of molded a different side where I just started to build this big business acumen. After I graduated, it was like, you can go get your master's in music business. But then I was like, well, what am I gonna do that for? Because why am I paying this much money for it? For something that I feel like I can just figure it out. And yeah, like after post college, I remember calling my mom crying. I went to work and I worked at a bank and I was just like, what am I doing here? I don't belong here. And my mom was, I was like, I feel like I wasted a lot of time, like from that point in 11th grade to being in grad student age, like, and she's like, no, you just collected all this knowledge, now it's like all a part of your biz bag. And she would say, that's your biz bag, like now you know how to do this, you know how to do that, you have stuff that people can't take away from you. And when she said that, I was like, you're right. But I said I had to quit this job, and so I was at that job for like 3 months. I bought my equipment, built the studio in my walk-in closet, and then I quit the job, became a realtor, because I was like, I can control my time and close deals, and. And so I was a realtor, and then I Googled, like, how do I go to the Grammys? Because I was like, I need to just like, we need a whole new environment surrounded by the people, everybody that's doing it. And so I joined Grammy U. I lived in Chicago, joined Grammy U. I worked backstage, Lollapalooza, went to all these events. I didn't have a mentor then. I don't know if that program was like there, but I stayed in connection with the membership team and everyone that was in Chicago. And like I said, everything kind of came organic. I think that was like a pivotal moment where I said, I'm going to trust myself and I'll figure it out, because if I can make money, like I'm a real go getter, and I'm like, I can wake up and go get it. And I figured that out, but it still is a hamster wheel. Like there were times where it's just like, okay, how do I get out of this? Because every moment you're going to be like, all right, I'm tired of doing this level, I need to go to the next level. And it usually comes with a huge sacrifice that you have to trust and then just go for it. And so that's that, like, but working that job and just feeling very uncomfortable. It was like spiritual suicide. If I was to describe it, you ever go to work and I'm like, I'm sick all the time, I feel like I want to throw up as soon as I walk in here. And no one can really understand like who you are, what you do, you're creative. They're like, and you're like, loosen up. So that was the moment where I just said, hey, it's just time to go get it however you can. Another thing that I did was I started doing beat battles all over the country. So once I got my equipment, I kind of jumped in. Now, my whole undergrad year, I did not do music. I had an MPC and a Triton in my dorm room, and all the guys would walk past my room and they would be like, she got a in a Triton. But I couldn't really cook up. It just wasn't working, because I think trying to focus on accounting and business, it just didn't mix well. And, I was a little depressed. Like, I'm trying to get something out that's in me, and it just never really worked out. So I was just like, all right, I'll pause. Let me finish this, and then let me get back to it. And once I got back to it, I traveled the country with this company called Standard Producers and did beat battles all over the country, and then started working for them, which led to education. So that's how it worked out.
Wow, it sounds like a robust journey, a lot of pivoting. Although some things were organic, it did take some consistency and belief in yourself to build that muscle of trust so that you can dive deeper into the music industry. So, very fascinating, very interesting journey. So, what's one thing you wish young people understood about the work behind becoming a DJ, a producer, an engineer in the work that you're doing now?
I think that there's a couple things. One, I worked really, really hard when I was a kid. So it was like at one point, I'm like, in college, especially when I couldn't really lock in like I'm normally used to. I mean, I had a studio in my house, but I worked really hard as a kid. Like after school, in high school, I was eager to go to the studio. I was like the Beyonce of the group. That was like super go hard then, and I feel like a lot of people kind of lost that what that really means, like work ethic, and sometimes the talent is already in you and you don't have to force as much when you have those blockages and everything. I'm just really speaking of like the things that you are in control of. So I think that that really helped. But even on the business side, like building up an emailing list when I was doing those showcases and building relationships, and I lived out of a suitcase, but I took that. I mean, it was like the backpack, hop on in the airport. I'm in the last group. There was nothing that I was just like, all right, bet I'm there. And I figured it out if that meant I had to ask everybody in my family for $10 or $20 for the next flight. Like it was really that simple and easy for me to do. I didn't look at it like it was a roadblock. I was just like, well, if it happens, it happens, and I'm rolling out of bed and I'm going for it. And then I would do it. And those relationships, bouncing from city to city, is what you don't know at the time. Those are all the people that are actually rooting for you. And a lot of them are colleagues and people that you end up working with. So moving around and building relationships is really important. And you never know where someone's going to be. Like, I remember in those showcases, Illmind, he's an amazing producer. He would be the judge, and we would be from New York to Miami, and now he's the VP of A&R at Empire. And so, but I was rolling into those showcases, and I've been knowing him for over 10, 15 years. So it's just like, you never know what seat people are going to be at. So relationships, and just really know and trust yourself. Like, if it's what you're supposed to be doing, it's going to work out, but it might cost you some stuff for sure.
Great insight. A lot of practicalities there. The one thing that you stood out that I wish I knew when I was younger is to develop an email list, right? That community is the community that I'm going to continue to promote and present myself to. So if you're an artist in here and you're planning to promote and present yourself and build community, start building your email list. Everyone that you're communicating with now and all the relationships that you're cultivating now are part of that community. So continue to build that out. That's one thing that stood out from what you shared, because I wish I knew that as well when I was young. I also want to remind you all to feel free to drop some questions in the chat if you have any for Dope Candy. I'm going to move on to a few technical questions that I have for you, because just to remind you, this is a production course. Obviously, you're a producer, and we want to just dive into how you do what you do. So for the students who are just learning production, although I'm sure that they know the difference between these things, I just want to hear from your perspective, what is the difference between producing, mixing, and engineering in just very simple terms?
So producing is like really the overall scope of the song. You don't always have to be the beat maker to be the producer. You can be the one bringing all the musicians together to flesh out the song, but the producer has like the overall view of putting all the pieces together. And most of the time we are also the one that's creating the beat. We set up those collaborations and all those other things too. And beat makers can be programmers and program the beats. It's always controversial when it comes to that conversation. Being a mixing engineer, that is when you're going to enhance and clean up and make it ready for the world to hear. And so each one is a different art. It requires great set of ears and knowing like what different type of effects bring out different things with the production that you're working with. So what works well for vocals, what are you going to do side chain, your drums and your bass and everything, trying to enhance the track so nothing is cluttered, everything sounds clear, everyone can hear all of the musical ideas that's happening in your project. And then an engineer, of course, we have, the recording engineer. And one thing that I love about recording engineers, being super fast, being able to capture the best recording performance in the studio. And so that's their job. And yeah, I mean, I admire everyone that knows every single shortcut in Pro Tools and Logic and all the things, and how to set up that all the effects change for the vocal chain and everything, and record the best, not just with vocals, but even when it comes to live instrumentation in the studio, being able to set up the mics appropriately and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's the job.
Amazing. Thank you so much for outlining those different roles, which are all essential to the overall production. You have another special skill set as a DJ, right? Which makes you even more of a value as a producer. So I want to ask your understanding of energy, transitions, and crowd response influence. How does that influence your approach in production?
Being a DJ has helped so much. It's made me a better producer, and being a producer has made me a better DJ. They kind of
Mhm.
worked hand in hand for me because I think one of the biggest takeaways is when you listen to, when I'm downloading songs and I'm listening to them from the perspective of a DJ, I'm pulling stuff that people want to hear. It's popular, but I'm also an eclectic DJ. So I do flips on the spot. Like I'm flipping samples, bringing in acapellas, all types of things, but I'm able to really see what the listeners are listening to, because sometimes as a producer you can be stuck in your what it is you want to create.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
once you step out into the world and you're like, oh, everybody is really jamming to that, or the younger generations, what are they listening to? Who I have my ear to the streets. I work with high school students, so I'm like, what are y'all listening to? And they're keeping me on game, but I'm understanding why, like, or what is the trend right now, like what is it that they actually like about the music, and that helps shape the sound frequencies and kind of modernize what it is that you're doing. So it really works well being able to do both. Yeah.
Mhm. That's amazing. Yeah, I have DJ friends and colleagues who aren't good producers, but like they're good music supervisors, or like that skill
Yeah.
set is so transferable. Can you tell us a little bit more about how transferable that skill set as a DJ is? Like you can do so many other roles. It's vast. People think it's so insignificant and that you're just spinning songs at a party, but it's so
No.
much you can do with it.
I mean, I just had the honor to DJ Google Cloud Next conference in Vegas last Thursday. And I totally underestimated that. That was 20,000 people
Wow.
in a stadium. That was my first stadium gig. But even with my eclectic way, because I think it's important to bring yourself, like always bring yourself. But then it's like, what would 20,000 people vibe to? So I think about that
Mhm.
in that age group and all that kind of stuff. So really, the DJing aspect is the creative way of marketing. It
Mhm.
really is. So when you think about that and you think about putting your playlist together, it's like, how are you marketing the artist? But you can also put your artist on, put yourself on as an artist. If you know how to DJ and build your brand, I mean, people are really able to like visually see you perform. It's a performance act, at the end of the day, and encompasses so much. So as an artist, you can start to build your fan base as a DJ. As a producer, you can definitely transfer those skills in creating your own mixes and also learning what people are constantly interested in hearing and be creative in that way. And so it's so many ways that it can work for you.
Amazing. Congratulations on your recent gig. I mean, I see you out here, girl. That's why I had to have you on this platform before you blow up and you get too busy. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us. We have a lot of amazing questions in the chat. So I want to invite some of the students to pop on and ask some of the questions and introduce themselves to you because, again, this is their mentorship opportunity with you. So, Palita.
Hi, Dope. Hi, Candice. It's so good to hear your stories. I feel like it's very inspiring as a person who's also pivoting her career into this industry. I feel like I resonate so much to your story, but I'm still at the beginning process of it. So, yeah, my question would be like, have you ever doubted yourself in the process of pivoting your career? If so, what made you kept going? What motivation did you have for yourself? Yeah.
She said, have I ever, can you repeat that one more time?
doubted yourself in the process of pivoting your career, or did you always knew that this is gonna work?
I think how to answer that question. I would say, I mean, we always have moments where we're like, I can't do this right now. I don't feel. It's never been like a doubt based off of performance per se, like a doubt like I can't figure this out, because there's been failures. I mean, I've used to do beat battle showcases and lose, but I knew what I was doing was right. And there's so many factors on how you win, how you lose, or whatever. But in each process, I just looked at it like it was a learning process, and I was surrounded by so many great people. I can't do nothing but learn from this opportunity, and then you just keep going. So I never looked at it as a space where I would give up. I think the challenges that we really face, like if I knew in my whole heart of hearts, like I know I'm not supposed to be working at no bank. Like, could you imagine that? That's crazy. looking at me now and looking at all the stuff I did then, if I would have stayed on those trajectories with all the many jobs that I've had, it would have been insane. And I just think about the source, higher power, whoever you want to call. I'm like, I definitely wasn't born to do those things, and I just knew it. And then how life is set up, and everyone's life is pretty different. So it's just like if you can look back at and kind of trace back to when you were younger, what were you always doing, or what really stood out to you, or what really called you to do different things than you kind of know. So I already knew this was the space, but navigating the space, because the space is not easy to navigate through, is another thing. So it's just like you got to know when to hold them, when to fold them. It's like you got to know when to negotiate. You got to know when to just go in the lab and get off of social media, get out of all the distractions and focus on your craft when it's time for you to get better, because it's a job. It's like we're going to lose opportunities if we don't actually put forth our best effort. And so I think when it comes to that kind of stuff, sure, I've been in spaces where, I mean, even DJ gigs where I'm just like, this isn't really my crowd, but okay, I'm gonna do it. Let me figure it out. You just got to jump in and then figure it out. So I would say the doubting never stopped me, if that's what you're asking. And the motivation is I know I'm not supposed to be doing nothing else because I've been down those roads, So I kind of debunked myself when it comes to trying other things out. Like, no, girl, why you keep running from it? Or why are you doing, you're wasting time. So that's how I feel about that.
Thank you.
That's a great lesson to what you say. You also got to know when to say no, thank you, and that the opportunity doesn't align with your values as an artist or as a professional or whatever the case may be. So saying no is okay as well if it doesn't align with who you are in your trajectory. Let's move on to Tatiana. Let's hear from you. Hey.
So yeah, so my name is Tatiana. I'm from Spain and I was living in LA just now. I just moved back to Spain like 2 days ago. But I was I'm like only getting started. I'm more focused on songwriting, but I do want to learn, I do want to be a good producer because I think it brings out it just it's a completely different skill set and it makes you a better songwriter. But I wanted to ask you like Dope Candy, like how did you utilize your mailing list? Because I keep reading about it, but and I'm like, but how do you actually like what do you do with that once you have that list? And also, I wanted to ask you how you became a session producer. Like, how did you connect with with this however many artists to actually have them come into your studio and work with them?
So the emailing list, working for companies, you kind of see what they do, right?
Mhm.
And every company has an emailing list. I think visibility and understanding that marketing is you want to put yourself in front of the best spaces and the most spaces as possible. And so building the emailing list as an artist, I think one of the cool things you could do to start to build community is do something that serves the community. So, are you hosting writing sessions or producing sessions, right? And so a team of producers that I ended up traveling with, working with the Beat Battle Company, we did something called a producer huddle because doing a show every month was cool, but it's like we want to cook up together or hear what people have going on outside of that. And whether it was 5 of us or 15 of us, we would pull up to the studio and just, it's an open invitation, like come and play some beats and let's vibe. And so that's how I served the community with that emailing list. And then in that emailing list, sprinkle in what I have going on. I just release this track, or here's a remix, or here's an event that I'm doing. And so it's just bringing awareness. It's like you don't have to feel like it's salesy. It's just one thing is I look at it as an exchange. Like, what am I giving these people if I'm emailing them? Pull up. Because also the word of mouth gets, and then they always bring somebody. Next thing you know, you got 120, 200 people that are consistently showing up for you, and then that's really cool. And then out of those people, that's where you figure out who do you want to work with. And I
Mhm.
stop looking at it like I want to work with the biggest. Of course, you want to work with the biggest stars in the world, right? But when you collaborate with someone horizontally, like doing that horizontal network, they might be working on one of the biggest artists in the world and they're going to hit you because you have something to offer and you guys were able to work and you have built that synergy prior to. So it takes patience too. I think that you have to look at this like you're literally building the blocks from it. But within that process of you building with a positive attitude and everything, these other wonderful things just come and you're just like, what? I got this phone call to do this, but it all comes from like just being and showing up and like utilizing those tools of building community. So yeah.
Thank you.
Amazing insight. Thank you for sharing that. Amazing. Audrey, let's hear your question. Would you mind coming on and asking Dope Candy your question?
Sure.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so I just wanted to know more about Dolby Atmos and how you're using Dolby Atmos in your production.
So yeah, I got turned on to Atmos about what was this 2026? First moved here 2021. I did like a studio tour and PMC speakers had their whole setup and everything, and then I was just like, you know what? I've always been creatively doing things with sounds inside of like my production. And when it came to panning and I'm in the room and I'm listening to records in an immersive environment, I'm just like, this is bigger than life. And I've always been into like movie scoring and all that kind of stuff. Like, as I used to say, eventually this is where I want to be. But then now I'm like, actually, I need to start doing this now. So um, I got turned on to it then. I immediately started studying for it. Now, so because I teach, I was able to connect with Dolby. They wanted to do some stuff with my students in Atmos. So I created a lesson. And one of the things that I always tell people is the best way to learn is to teach. And
Mhm,
so
mhm,
I was able to teach and produce track and music video with my students in Compton, and we mixed everything in Atmos. That was one thing. Another thing is I got called to do like a movie trailer, and of course I used that aspect to work. It was an indie movie trailer. Used that in production with Atmos, and I'm continuously learning because it's something that's constantly it's something new, with Atmos all the time. But yeah, I call artists. I actually hit up a bunch of my artist friends and I said, hey, you got a record? I'll mix it in Atmos. Send it to me. And I am doing like a lecture panel for people that want to teach it with Dolby and Sweetwater. And so I'm going to use their records to showcase what I did. And so this is like how to get involved, how to keep learning. And then if the mixes are great, they can release them. Now we got stuff released in Atmos. Some of these are going to be upmixed because their albums are already released. But yeah, and that's cool. We can promote it and do immersive events because now they have the content and immersive. So that's just how I give myself, and then it just comes back.
Thanks for your question, Audrey.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, we skipped you, Angelica. Do you mind coming and ask your question to Dope Candy?
Yes, hi Candy. Candice, I'm sorry, hi Dope Candy. Hey,
Hi.
from Detroit. Detroit love to use Dope Candy.
What up, though?
What up though? My question is, do you play an instrument? And if so, or if not, how important do you feel that is to being a producer?
Instruments are so important. I wish I would have stuck with them. I did not. I mean, I picked up the bass for a little bit. This was just me on my own. I was one of those kids that did not resonate with music class because I heard everything already. It was just like so I learned by ear. I was always playing at the keys, and when I heard something, I could just figure it out. Now, if I was able to mentally be able to learn the correct way, then that would have been an amazing force to be able to play. But I started with keys, and I would just play everything by ear. And then I'm a beat machine girl, so I started on the MPC, which and playing. Now, what helped me, and it's funny, I tell people this story, is back in the day when I used to listen to my favorite producers, which were Timberland and Rodney Jerkins and all these amazing people that was making our favorite R&B records back in the day, I thought, and even hip hop, I thought they were playing everything. So I would try to mimic my favorite songs and play them. And I would be sitting at the keyboard for days, for hours. But it made me a better player by ear. And then I noticed they were sampling everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what? So you mean to tell me I didn't spend days and hours, but it just helped shape me. So I played by ear, and then I picked up the bass. I really want to learn guitar. I think if you know an instrument, you're gold. It's something no one can ever take away from you. You can always do a session and pull up. So it is very critical. I think if any and everybody has opportunity, it's never too late to learn anything, which is great. But yes, learn instruments. Please do.
Good idea. Good tip. Jolie, do you want to come on and ask your question?
Hi, Dope Candi. Thank you so much for being here. I was curious about your research process, like what that looks like. Even if it's like for a set that you say like isn't your vibe, like what do you do then? And like what is your workflow? And like are there any tools that are a really big part of that workflow? And are any of them AI? Like
Ah,
chat or something?
we got some great questions. We got a lot of questions. Okay, so research wise, I always pay attention to the charts. So I'll browse, the charts to see what's bubbling because I don't, I don't know if you guys listen to the radio. I don't listen to the radio. Of course, we stream everything. So, I have all the streaming platforms. So I kind of look and see who's dropping what I am on IG, so in a part of the community. So of course, when someone albums drop, I'm seeing what's going on. So just watching what's going on, and then like I said, because I'm around younger, I would say younger adults all the time, like high school students and younger adults, watching what they like. So I always ask them, and I watch what they put in their playlist, and a lot of them like the older 2000s music, which is really cool. I like that. But that's my way of doing research. On another side of it, when it comes to my sets, I built my sets because, like I said, I'm an eclectic type of DJ. I really love house music, tech, future beats, but I'm a hip hop head too. And so I kind of fuse them both together. And I do a lot of retail gigs, a lot of fashion gigs, and things like that, where that stuff kind of works. Like if you think about runway, but incorporating hip hop and runway vibes, that's kind of like my flow. When it comes to gigs that I don't really resonate with, I haven't really done those in a long time. That's why I'm not like DJing everywhere. It's just like, oh, she did this gig though. You know what I mean? I kind of because I do so much too, it's like I'm not the bounce around to every club DJ. But I do significant gigs. So I'll find like what is significant to me, and that's the gig I want to do. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's like my style, and I kind of stick to that. When I did do some gigs that really didn't resonate, I just kind of, the one thing is you got to stay true to yourself, or else you're going to not like it. It's going to feel weird, with the crowd and everything. So I just stick with what was popular at the time. That's what I did. So what everyone was listening to, when you think of a crowd, they literally bounce from club to club to hear the same stuff. Like general population, not musicians. Everyone's waiting on their favorite song, their favorite part of the song to drop. They want to yell and say the same part at the same time, and so doing research on clubs and venues when I was in that realm was important. I used to just sit at the bar and just watch, and people watch and see what they did. And then when it was my turn to go, I would go and I would play that stuff, but then I would throw in some other stuff. And every time I would do that, I would get someone come up to me and say, hey, where can I find that? And that was like an indication, like, you can actually make something out of this and flip it. You just got to do more of that. And so that's just how I carve my space out. But weddings is totally different. Different type of corporate events are different. Sometimes they give you a playlist or give you a vibe they want to stick to. I did Cisco Systems award show, like the tech awards, crazy. And they sent me a vibe that they wanted, but I was like, oh, I could work with this. And then I threw in what I wanted to work. So that's question one. Question two, in regards to my workflow, when it comes to production workflow, I use Ableton primarily. I am like I was a Logic girl at one point, a Studio One girl at one point, not a FL Studio girl. I even though I have FL, something about looking at that screen. And funny is FL used to be called Fruity Loops when I was younger, and I was just like turned off by the name. So I'm not a FL girl, but I do hear, production that's done in it, and I see why people gravitate towards it. Not saying that I won't dive into it, but it is on my laptop. But yeah, Ableton is my jam right now. I start off with templates. I usually just start off with melodies and figure out what inspires me. Also, like what sometimes I know what it is that I'm trying to create. So it was just like, okay, I want to flip, something to some R&B or whatever. My go-to is Serato Sampler when I want to sample stuff. Of course, I have all the native instrument stuff. I kind of do some unique things to add my sauce to the sound palette. And I really start with 8 bars and build and keep building and keep building and keep building. Build an idea and then sit with it for a minute and then finish it. If I can hear something on it, add a reference to it and then keep moving that way. So that's like the fastest way I flush something out in terms of workflow. And there was another question. What was the other question? Oh, AI. So, I got some producer homies that I collaborate with a lot, and they really took a dive into AI, and they sent me stuff that's incredible, incredible. And they say, hey, you need to be on this, you need to be on that. But I'm still like torn in some aspects. Now, how I use AI, if I need some ideas, then I'll use it, like put in a prompt. If I'm looking for something specific, or if I want to flip something to MIDI notes to actually flip that, then I do that, which is a game changer. So if I hear like a sample or something that I'm like, this might be easy to get the MIDI out of it, and you can just pop it in AI and it does that, then you can move the notes around. But it's really about creating or getting an idea for inspiration. And so I do that. Or for my songwriters, another cool way to use it is you're fleshing out your idea. You might have your chorus and you're trying to figure out the notes for the background to make it full, what kind of stacks you want to use, and pop it in AI and see what it comes up with. And then you go back and sing it, right? So I think those are the ways that it should be used. And I'm still growing on how. And then also systems, like automating systems and things to make your workflow as fast as possible. But yeah, I'm still growing in that area and just kind of watching what people are doing in terms of AI.
Thank you. Thanks, Jolie, for your question. Hope she got all the answers out for you. Orlando, I see you came on camera ready for your question. And you mind asking Dope Candy your question?
I did. Thank you so much, Del, for sharing your time and expertise with us, and for Candace and Skylar for this space.
Of course.
Um, just wanted to say, as I'm taking this class specifically as a singer-songwriter, to sort of know the language in which producers speak, and also to put together my little demos and to show people around, But I'm curious to know if you have any tips in terms of finding collaborators sort of horizontally, like you said, who may not be so high profile that like they're charging a lot for like, you know, just to put something together. Like if there's any groups that you know about, or like societies, or like ways to go about finding those people to collab, those voices. That'll be super helpful. And also have a second one, but I can ask that out later.
So you're in a whole class of people to collaborate with.
Yes, yes.
I would definitely start there. Again, I think we don't realize who we're in the room with, and not everyone signed up. So you guys have already broke the ice on why you're there. It's class. Everyone's a creator. So I think really starting there and meeting up, again, that's how I started to formulate that. And then you never know who's going to hear it. So higher profile people started to know about me because of, one, they see me somewhere. Either I'm on a stage playing beats, or I'm at a showcase just to vibe, or I'm DJing somewhere. And then you hear about, whatever I have going on with the brand. And then I've collaborated with this whole class of people that are also able to share our work. And so it'll eventually get heard by someone that can say, hey, I want to work with you now, right? I never look at it as improving yourself, but sometimes you have to put yourself on the radar. And the way to do that is really by putting out work so people can hear
Mhm.
what you have. Not only that, starting where you're at with the people you're in class with and going from there. So I would host my own songwriting sessions or find a group to do that. And then of course, we have Grammy U's and all
Mm.
of the other amazing for my ladies, women in music, WAM, Women's Audio Mission. I mean, I'm a lady, so Orlando, I can't really tell you 100% what's out there for the guys, but there's people that are looking for vocalists as in bands. You can start off that way. One of my mentees, she's a part of a band. That's where she got her start, is being in a band. And she's branched off on her own now, but they were able to produce EPs together, which got her sound out. So now, her voice is out. So it's just creating and not leaving restrictions on like who. It's just like, let's link up and see what we come up with. Everything's experimental. Like, don't be so hard or like I gotta work with this person. Like,
Mhm.
remove those restrictions will get you nowhere. Like, then you don't have anything. You know.
Thank you so much.
What was your other question?
Yes, I'm curious to know if you have any recommendations for websites or like libraries where to pull sounds. I play the guitar and the piano, but I don't have those instruments with me. So I would like to like pull from, I know most of the DAWs have libraries built in, but I'm wondering about external sites. If you have any recs.
Um. Okay, so what I would say also with that is you're in a class full of people that might play guitar, and then y'all should just come and record a bunch of guitar licks and then flip those. That's one idea. Another idea, there's wave.com, tracklib, of course. I'm sure you guys all know Splice. Splice is taking over the world. It's in Ableton now. And there's other websites that you could look at, and then also just have fun. Go dig and find some stuff that may be unique to you. I think that we've gotten to like trying to do things fast. And it's just like, no, like actually let it simmer. Like let's go listen and figure out what is it we're trying to create and then call some people over and just pick up a guitar. See what happens. That's how it happened with me. I'm like, I want live bass on this track. And then I'm like, let me go pick up a bass and see if I can do it. And then I did it.
Great feedback. Thank you so much for your questions, Orlando. Let's hear from Aaliyah.
Yeah. Hey,
Hey.
hey, it's Aaliyah. You actually answered my original question, but I have another one for you. So I last year went to I'm a songwriter, singer, pseudo producer. I'm working on it. And I went to a songwriting festival last year and made a bunch of connections through that. And I met some producers and they said, send me your music. Like they're open to me sharing the music with them. And I'm somebody who wants to be very, A, respectful of people's time, but I also B, like to have like a very clear ask. And in this case, I don't know that I actually want to work with those producers, but I really would value them listening to it and providing any feedback. And so as a producer yourself, I'm curious, like, have you gotten asks from people in that position where I know like sometimes my expertise is actually in a different industry and sometimes I get emails where I'm like that's not like a great use of my time, but sometimes I think oh that's like a really well worded question or somewhere where I can uniquely add value. So I'm just curious, being in the shoes of a producer, if you have advice on how you would frame an ask when it's kind of open-ended, um like what has landed well with you, if that makes sense.
I think visibility. So like I don't know who you met, but one approach would be make sure you follow them online and then see what they have going on. And then ask. Like I would send an email and just say, hey, I like whatever you like about them. I met you at so and so, and here's my music. I wouldn't take it personal if they don't listen because I mean, everybody's life is life, right? I wouldn't take any of that personal, but I would just start there. And I think visibility is just like, oh, I remember this person. Let me check her out, when they have time to do it. I think that that's it. The other thing is doing more of those events where you can play your stuff to get heard. So everyone's in the space of working, like everybody's got lives, but if it's something that I'm going to something specific to listen to songwriters, and I know that I'm going to listen to the songwriters, that's where you would ask. But yeah, I wouldn't feel any type of way about just asking, but I will always remind them of where I saw them, tell them something about themselves that I like, ask the question. If they get back to me, great. If not, that's fine too. Not taking it personal. And then also building visibility. So if you follow them online, making sure you support whatever they have by like, sharing, comment, etc. Because then they may put two and two together, like, oh, that's the girl that that sent me the email, and so forth. So that's what the blind asking. Again, when it comes to connections and building, sometimes you got to be strategic when you are really trying to get something where it needs to be. But that can also take patience, and being genuine and authentic as well is really important.
Super helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That authenticity is the last thing that I was going to add had you not added that, because just being yourself, putting yourself out there, cultivating those relationships, not just following them, but engaging with them, showing a genuine interest, that's right on point. Everything that Dope Candy mentioned is right on point when it comes to that network that you're trying to build. Let's see who's Litany?
Lidani.
Litany?
Lidanis. Thank you so much.
Tell me how to pronounce it so I get it right next time.
Lidanis.
Lidanis.
Yeah,
Okay. Nice to see you.
nice to see you. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
My question, Dove Candy, is you are in the middle of so many things going on. You get hired for so many things. You are working different projects, collaborating. So how do you? Because I'm sure you have your own ideas for projects, and you might be in the middle of a trip, and then you are like, oh, I have this idea for this project, and so many that might get accumulating. So my question is like, how do you organize them, and how do you prioritize them, so then you can decide which one is actually doable, that you can start and is likely to end, or which ones, because you are so packed, and I'm assuming your calendar is so packed too, is like, how realistically are those ideas? So what is your process? How do you prioritize them? Yeah.
Everything's unrealistic. Honestly, I mean, when I have an idea, like I might wake up at 3, 4 in the morning and I'm like cooking up. And then I have ideas, right? But, and then they'll go in the folder. And then, I'll come back to them after a couple months and be like, when did I make this? Or, wow, like this is crazy. And so they'll sit there. But you know what? I always get called to do something, and then that folder's available. So if I get called to do something like the writing camp with the girls we did earlier this month, then it's like, okay, what do I have? Well, now I have all these ideas that I woke up at 3, 4 in the morning and was doing randomly over the past 6 months. And now I have stuff to play. So and then I don't really look at it like prioritizing in that aspect. And then later on, it's just like, cool, like I want to release a instrumental or do some flips or something like that to kind of bridge the gap between the DJing and the production and release it online so people can have something to listen to. But it's like, my priority is with the gigs that I have. And
Right.
since, like I said, I chose to do stuff that I want to do, I feel really excited about that. So I don't feel like I'm losing or leaving anything out. The music is always going to find its way somewhere. Just whenever you get called for a session, play it. And then somebody will say, I want that, or let's write to that, or let's start with that. So I built the catalog because you got to stay creative and you got to keep focused and just be ready and prepared for those calls. So being organized though, those stay in a folder. I try to keep the sessions available to be able to, pull them up really quick and have stems I available. So if someone does want to work with it, we can just boom, send all the stuff. I use Disco too for a lot of things. So um, I do normally have an admin day, which is kind of should my Sunday should be my complete off day, right? But sometimes that's my admin day, and then I'll go through the process of uploading whatever I need or making tweaks and kind of organizing myself from the past weeks or couple weeks that I was super busy. So that's how I stay. I keep externals for a lot of things too and label everything as much as I can. But being organized, it is extremely important. However, it's one of those things that I'm still working on overall as far as like having the music completely organized. But nothing goes unused. It's always someone that wants something or something for me to tweak and use for even myself. Um, and yeah, I mean, I would say that that's really it. I prioritize my gigs and all the things because I just choose stuff that I want to do. I don't want to if it doesn't align, then I'm just like it's not really that much of a priority for me to think about. And so I just stick with stuff that I want to do.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ladonis, for your question. We are getting short on time, so we have enough time for a couple more questions. Livia, you want to come on and ask Dope Candy your question?
Yes, hi. Thanks so much for being here and giving us so much insight. My question is like, I love what you said about being in the DJ space and kind of marketing yourself as an artist. And I had that idea when I was watching some DJs at an EDM rave thing. They were going back and forth, and I was like, this would be so cool to get into DJing and throw in some of my pop songs as well. But I feel like this is like the first class I've done in production. So I'm wondering, how would someone with beginning production skills approach learning how to DJ for the first time?
Oh, it'll be a breeze for you. I mean, really well, depending on what type of DJ you want to be. I will say that. So we're talking turntablism, that's a whole nother skill set. You know, it's expensive. Actually, being a DJ, you can buy a controller if you want to start there. You can get a controller for about $300. You can get Serato. It's a subscription for what 10-20 bucks a month online and download that and get started. And I would just research DJ pools, pull some music, and focus on really looking at the song arrangement, the grid, and working on transitions. The transition is the most important part of the DJ. How you go from one song to the next is it. So beat matching and transitioning. Now, if you're getting into turntablism, that's a whole different ball game. But if you're into EDM, I mean, CDJs is really the way that most EDM clubs do things. So if you're in LA, I don't know if you are or not, but actually Pirate Studios is located in a few different places over the US and outside of the country. But I would go there and practice. And with DJ, it's just practice. I think with production, understanding what you're able to understand in production is song arrangement, right? Which is great for a DJ because you'll know your hot cues, where you want to start the song, end the song. You're learning EQ, you're learning all of the effects, what that does. So your low, mids, and your highs, how to use those as tools to bring songs in and out as a DJ. But everything else is really beat matching and transitioning from one to the next. And once you get that down, you're off to the races. Just go book a gig, go DJ. Start with family, friends. Just be like, oh, I'll DJ your wedding. I'll DJ, and just say yes. And then once you feel confident, then go build your world. You know.
I love that. Thank you. I'm in New York, by the way.
New York is an amazing place to DJ.
Mm-hmm.
Tons of places to do it.
Thanks for your question, Livia. Doo, let's hear your question. Go ahead and ask Dope Candy.
Hi, Dope Candy. So it's apparent that you wear a lot of hats, DJ, producer, engineer. Is there one that you identify with first and foremost? And is that different in the wild, like when you introduce yourself? And does that hurt or help? I'm a DJ myself. I think like a producer. I also don't want to box myself in, but I also want to understand if it would open the door as well.
Production was worse. I started producing in 8th grade. So that was always like first love, first thing, but it's also the thing that I think when you love something so much, you're very like afraid of failure, right? In that way of like my emotions is in that space, and I think DJing allows me to kind of open up a bit more. But I think production is A1. But I mean, what I identify as when I'm talking to people is producer DJ. I think when people actually just look, they see both, and one hasn't gotten in the way of the other. I do get a whole lot more DJ gigs because I mean, everyone, especially based off of where I'm located here, making a living being a DJ with the type of gigs I do was far easier than production. Production is time consuming. I mean, you're building, it's like painting a picture, a sculpture, a project. So it's just two different ways of thinking about it in terms of business. But yeah, I'm a producer DJ. I have people that say, like, when I did the Google gig, they had a dressing room with my name on it, but they put DJ Dope Candy. And I'm like, that's weird because no one really calls me DJ Dope Candy. But I'm just like, okay, whatever. You know what I mean? It's okay because in that world, in that space, that's what they know me as, and that's fine. I really don't
It
just
doesn't matter.
no, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Just relax and do you. Don't even feel bad. Just or wonder. Just
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of multifaceted people in the music industry who do wear many, many hats. Don't cut yourself short because you think you used to present yourself as one thing or another. Let them know that you can do it all because skills are transferable.
Yes.
Thank you for that, ladies.
Of course. Okay, we have another question from Tanya.
Hey everyone, marketing director with Live Out Live here. Thank you so much, Candy. I wanted to ask one question because Live Out Live is really big on representation. So, producers who are women of color hold less than 1% of overall producers. Any thoughts as to why women of color are severely underrepresented as the music industry grows?
I think that it's crazy. So, like I said, I started in the eighth grade making beats on a beat machine. And there was no women in it. Out of all the studios that I was dragged to with my family doing sessions, the women were singers or songwriters. Uh, that was it. There was nobody behind the boards really, and every now and again a musician, like they played an instrument, but no one really producing. And so when I jumped back in, because I took that hiatus in college and did all the things, I thought that it would be so many more represented. Now I'm finding there's a lot of producers. There's a lot of reasons why it's not more though. And I since I teach, I'm looking at what's being marketed to kids, right? Being a producer, a music producer, it just opened up, I would say, as our equipment turned more less analog and more digital. Then we got everything with the colors and native instruments with the machine, and then all this, you know, and then they started putting women in ads of marketing to women, but it's still not necessarily mainstream. I did see a cereal box with music production on it. I think it was the Reese's a couple years ago, and I was like, okay. But in terms of like how things are marketed, it's just like gaming, right? And I'm like, you know, I got a class full of girls and none of them are looking at that like it's a pathway, like it's something they can do. And you know, you got the singers, you got the dancers and so on, but it's it's interesting. So I think how it's marketed is one of the reasons why. I think a lot of women too don't necessarily feel safe in the space, and there's a lot of distractions and things that we think about as women, especially adults, how our life path is and what it is you want to do, have kids, get married, you know, all the things. And it's not really dressed up as something that's gonna fit the lifestyle aspects, you know, when we really think about it. And so I think there's a number of way, and then access. Like a lot of people don't live out in LA or have the ability to bounce from studio to studio or just show up. And there's a confidence piece that comes with that because you're not in the environment. So there's a lot of reasons. If we can, that would be like a whole nother couple of hours of conversation. But yeah, accessibility and representation by people seeing it. The more women see it, then the more they're inspired to do it. Like, okay, I can do this, right? And just knowing what comes with it too. You gotta just know that this is what you want to do, and you gotta be able to roll with whatever that is. Like, You know, if you went to school to be a nurse or a doctor, you're there for 8 years, you're rolling with the punches. You think you know the outcome at the end because that one is a clear pathway. The music industry just not. It's a jungle. So you just gotta gotta swing from rope to rope.
It is the jungle.
Yeah.
I agree. I thank you for that. And I 1000% agree. And that's why we are here with Live Out Live trying to demystify these issues. So really appreciate that question and that answer. And we are at time, unfortunately, but a couple of housekeeping things before we check out. I dropped in a survey, a feedback survey or feedback form in the chat. If you guys have a quick moment, feel free to fill that in. That's how we improve what we do and the guests that we bring. If you guys appreciated Dope Candi, make sure you guys showing her a lot of love before she checks out. But Dope Candi, do you mind dropping your Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever is best for anybody to reach out to you after this?
Absolutely. So I'll put in everyone can go to at Dope Candy, everything with an I. Let me see if I can pull up the link real quick on IG. Boom. So this is where I live, where I'm at. Feel free to reach out. Got any questions? I'm here.
Perfect. You guys make sure you follow her, DM her, send her your records to to get some feedback, whatever it is. She is definitely here to support you guys as she showed up today and shared her journey. And thank you so much, Dope Candi. Thank you guys all. See you
Yeah.
all next week. Don't forget to fill out that feedback form and have a great rest of the weekend.
Have a good one.
Thank